Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Friday Ramblings. We are here, and we are getting ready to discuss a little bit of a follow-up to a previous video, as promised when we had that previous video. And that is the Cannonball Baker Dash Memorial Run, many adjectives, blah blah blah. Blah 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 blah. That was a real-life race, run several times, inspired various copycat races, and became also kind of famous in pop culture awareness due to its coverage in automotive magazines. So we're going to discuss 4 movies directly inspired by the real life run. Now, there's been a few other movies that have been inspired but have not been as blatant in their titling as it. So we're going to stick to these big 4. And they are the big 4. 2 of them specifically were movies that, if you were born in the right decades, were basically required viewing. But we'll get to that in a minute. Let's start in the beginning with Cannonball, released theatrically in the UK as Carquake, a 1976 comedy film directed by Paul Bartel and starring David Carradine, along with Bill McKinney, Veronica Hamill, Jarrett Graham, and Robert Carradine. As we said before, based on the real, illegal cross-continent road race that took place for a number of years in the United States. Now, Paul Bartel had previously directed Death Race 2000 and has said in interviews that one of the main reasons why he directed Cannonball was after directing it that he was told by various studios the only thing they wanted from him was another car picture, but not wanting to do something that was a direct follow-up to Death Race 2000, went more with the Cannonball Run style inspiration. Now, he himself, not being a huge car and racing fan, said that this is why the film was loaded up with various cameos and character gimmicks and given a comedic slant to it, because that kind of kept his interest going, as simply cars moving fast was not enough for him as a director, especially after doing Death Race 2000. Understandable, Not everybody wants to just constantly feel like they're doing the same movie over and over again, and you always want to put a little variety and spice into your life. Still, let's go through the basic plot, being as spoiler-free as possible. Now, in this movie, the race is referred to as the Trans-America Grand Prix, reference to the Grand Prix race held in Europe. Nice and touch there. And is claimed to be held every year, with the race going from the Santa Monica Pier in Los Angeles to New York City. Our main character is racing driver Coy Cannonball Buckman, hence them still using the Cannonball, even though they're not referring to the race as the Cannonball Dash, who has been recently released from jail where he was serving a sentence for killing a girl while driving drunk. Coy Buckman hopes to win the race and get his career back on track. Racing team Modern Motors have promised a contract to either him or his arch-rival Cade Redman, who is also in the race, the contract going to the winner. Coy is still on probation, and his parole officer, Linda Maxwell, is forced to try and stop him due to the fact that crossing state lines would put him in violation of his parole. This despite the fact that she has broken a little professional code of her own by carrying on an affair with him while being his parole officer. Tisk, tisk, tisk. But, you know, gotta have a little romance in your movies. Arch rival Redmond is accompanied in the form of country singer Perman Waters and his manager Sharma Capri, who agreed to pay Redmond's race expenses in return for his taking them with him to New York in his Dodge Charger. Now, this is also something to note, that they are going from LA to New York, whereas the classic real-world Cannonball Dash was from New York to LA. So they're basically doing the race backwards instead of this way. Oh well. Other competitors include teenage surfer sweethearts Jim and Marion, driving Marion's father's Chevrolet Corvette, middle-aged Terry McMillan in a Chevrolet Blazer, 3 waitresses, Sandy, Jenny, and Wendy, in a souped-up van, German driver Wolf Mezer in a Di Tommaso Pantera, African-American Butel in a Lincoln Continental. He has been hired by a wealthy elderly couple to transport to New York for them. Him not telling the wealthy couple he's going to be trying to win the race in the process of transporting it. And Buckman's best friend Zippo in a Pontiac Trans Am identical to Coy's. However, unknown to Coy, his brother Benny is bet heavily on the race and plans to use cheating methods to ensure Coy wins. So there is your basic plot layout, folks. You have a man trying to just get his life back on track after a big mistake. Various people just plain want the prize money in a variety of cars. An arch rival, and an amoral brother looking to cause some cheating shenanigans. It's a pretty good plot basis for any comedy. It does not take long for the race to degenerate into a violent demolition derby with various participants also cheating as well, or being taken out by the booby traps, or just plain aggressive driving of the other participants. Now, when it's all said and done, we are going to give you a little bit of a spoiler for the ending. I'm not going to go into details of who takes out who, because I want you to go find the movie, watch it yourself, and enjoy the excitement of not knowing what's going on. Roulette Productions, of course, does believe in a spoiler-free world whenever possible. All I'm going to tell you about the end, though, is Coy is forced to make a choice between winning the race and saving his romantic partner and parole officer, Linda, leading to a wonderful, happy ending for them, and more importantly, a little bit of a good ending to the race, as I'm not going to tell you exactly who wins officially, but I will say it is somebody that is blah blah blah. Can't find my words today. That is a pretty good person in and of themselves, and therefore the audience still can't mind too much when they win instead of our main lead getting the super mega happy ending. Of course, the first place prize money is $100,000, which in 1976 was a pretty good chunk of change. Now, besides the people we mentioned real quick, We have an uncredited cameo by Sylvester Stallone, Roger Corman, and Don Simpson, who is an American producer, screenwriter, and actor, often known for working with Jerry Bruckheimer. Directors Joe Dante, Jonathan Kaplan, Alan Arkush, and Martin Scorsese also have cameos, along with former Beach movie star and Transformers voice actor Aaron Kincaid. Along with many others, including David Arkin, who was part of the cast of MASH. And let's see who else. Make sure I'm not double billing here. We also have Dick Miller as the aforementioned Benny. So a lot of good times. Now, in the long run, this movie is overlooked by the next movie we're going to discuss, due to them coming out within a few years of each other, and the second movie being just a little bit bigger deal. Ultimately, the movie was filmed on a budget of $780,000 and had a box office gross of $1.5 million, so it was not a bomb. As I said, it just got overshadowed in it years later by some of our other entries. I would look for this movie if you see it on your favorite streaming service. Give it a chance. It's a good watch for what it is. And it is interesting to see completely different cast and crew's take on the same idea as its more famous brother. And that would be, in 1981, we got The Cannonball Run. Directed by Hal Needham, himself a stuntman and NASCAR team owner, which means he definitely knows a thing or two about crazy things happening in movies and how fun you can get with fast cars. It was produced by Hong Kong's Golden Harvest Films, distributed by 20th Century Fox, and includes a cast of established stars and folks just starting to break out. Let's go down the list real quick. We have Burt Reynolds, Roger Moore, Farrah Fawcett, Dom DeLuise, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., Adrienne Barbeau, Jamie Farr, Terry Bradshaw, Mel Tillish, Jackie Chan, and Michael Hua. Also known as Michael Hua Kun Man, Hong Kong, actor, comedian, and director. Very famous in the Hong Kong film scene, along with his brothers. It was one of 1981's most successful films at the box office. And along with its sequel, which we'll discuss in a minute, were the final film appearances of actor Dean Martin. And it was Jackie Chan's second role in a Hollywood film. As I said, rising stars. Now, in this movie, the race starts in Connecticut and features J.J. McClure, a famous racing driver and team owner, and Victor Prinzi, his chief mechanic, driving a Dodge Trans Am tradesman ambulance. Lived it. Former F1 icon Jamie Blake and his gambling-obsessed teammate Morris Fenderbaum, dressed as Catholic priests and driving a red Ferrari 308 GTS 79 model. Jill Rivers and Marcy Thatcher, two somewhat attractive women who try to use their looks to their advantage during the race, themselves driving a black Lamborghini Countach. Two drivers racing in a high-tech, computer-laden Subaru GL four-wheel drive hatchback with a rocket booster engine. A pair of good old boys driving street-legal replica of Donnie Allison's famous Hawaiian Tropic-sponsored NASCAR Winston Cup Series Chevrolet stock car. Woo! Say that 12 times fast. Seymour Goldfarb Jr., a rich British playboy who believes himself to be Roger Moore. Ha ha. Meta joke. Driving a silver Aston Martin DB5. Dual layer meta joke. And Abdul Ben Falafel, a wealthy, oil-rich Middle Eastern sheik driving a white Rolls-Royce Silver Shadow. Among the cast is also Arthur J. Foyt, a representative of the Safety Enforcement Unit, who tries to stop the race because of its environmental effects and safety issues. In the car with Foyt is a photographer and tree lover, Pamela Glover. Now, once the race starts, the action comedy kicks into high gear as these various top-rate actors and actresses seek to take each other out, including Victor occasionally turning into his alter ego, superhero Captain Chaos. Which is good times. And besides racing each other, they have to evade law enforcement along the way due to the fact that the race is illegal and they are often violating local speed limits. The primary rivalry is between the ambulance, driven by J.J. McClure, and Victor Prinzum, who of course are Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise, and the Ferrari, driven by Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr. When it's all said and done, and everybody gets their shots in and their chance to shine, the race ends hilariously with a foot race to the finish line due to the cars not surviving all of the shenanigans. The race officially being won by seductress and femme fatale Marcy. Foyt reappears at the end to blame everyone for ruining the American highway system before being dispatched once again. The film was infamous for Hal Needham's one day I'm going to learn how to say words correctly, but Hal Needham's habit of putting blooper reel over the credit showing the various outtakes and flubs in the movie. And as I mentioned before, Jackie Chan has a minor role in the movie, and he himself would often include such things, especially the fight scenes going bad. And while he has not directly stated he picked up this habit from Hal Needham, he usually credits it with wanting to show the younger people who tend to watch his movies that is the reality of filming. You can get hurt during these things, and thus not to try it at home. Can't help but feel like interacting relatively early in his career with Hal Needham certainly reinforced that this can be a good idea to help make your movie stand out. That's my personal theory. Take it for what you feel it's worth. It's kind of gone back and forth over the years, depending on when you read an interview from Jackie. This is, now it should be noted Hal Needham also worked with Burt Reynolds in the Smokey and the Bandit movies. First one of which had come out previous to Cannonball Run, and thus that certainly helped the publicity of the movie as, hey, people recognized recurring partnerships of director and actor. Good times, good times. Now, the script was partially helped written by Brock Yates, who had helped conceive the real-life Cannonball Baker event, as we had previously discussed. When it was all said and done, was it a big success? Yes. Cannonball Run opened on June 19, 1981 on 1,673 screens and grossed $11,765,574 in its opening weekend, the fourth highest opening of all time, although it still came in second behind Superman 2. The film ultimately went on to gross $72,179,579 in the United States and Canada, and was also successful overseas, especially in France and Germany, as well as Japan, grossing 2.1 billion yen, reaching a total worldwide gross in its initial run of 160 million against a budget of 16 to 18 million. That means they made, especially when you factor in long-term home release and TV airing, they made about 10 times their money. Good investment. Ultimately, though, despite all that good money, most critics did review the film negatively. It currently has an approval rating of 29% on Rotten Tomatoes based on 34 reviews. Roger Ebert gave the film a half-star out of 4. And Variety described the film as full of terrible inside showbiz jokes and populated by what could be called Burt and Hal's Rat Pack. The film takes place in that redneck Never Never Land where most of the guys are beer-guzzling good old boys, and all the gals are fabulously built tootsies. Still, the film does have a deep legacy, and especially for any fans of Burt Reynolds, it is a must-see movie. And was cited by game designer Yu Suzuki as an influence on his '86 arcade racing game Outrun. But we're not done yet, folks. We got a little bit more to go. Let's speed through these next couple entries real quick because we're getting into the sequels. Cannonball Run 2 came out in 1984. And features another rendition of the yearly race. It was the final feature film appearance of Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. And thanks to also the inclusion of Sammy Davis Jr. and Shirley MacLaine, is the final on-screen appearance of their on-screen partnership referred to as the Rat Pack. Film also marked the final film appearance of Jim Nabors for his death in November 2017. And also saw the returns of Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Jackie Chan, along with newcomers such as Jamie Farr, along with newcomers such as Mary Lou Henner, the aforementioned Shirley MacLaine, Susan Anton, Telly Savalas, Catherine Bach, Richard Kiel. Good times, good times. The main story behind this is that having launched the first Cannonball race, Sheikh Abdul Ben Falafel is ordered by his father, the king, to go back to America and win in order to emblazon the falafel name as the fastest in the world. Doop. And, of course, once the race has been confirmed and announced, various other drivers show up. Blake and Fenderbaum are in financial trouble with Don Cannelloni. Inspiring them to enter the race. The return of JJ and Victor, who catch the amorous attentions of Betty and Veronica, who are dressed as nuns for a musical, but remain in character and hitch a ride with JJ and Victor. Other racers, of course, include the return of Jackie Chan, teamed with Arnold, a giant, behind the wheel in a Mitsubishi Starion. The duo of Jill Rivers and Marcy Thatcher, the token two great-looking chicks, as they are referred to by the cops chasing them. You also have a Cadillac Fleetwood, driven by an orangutan, and various others. It is a good time, and this time the budget went up to $22 million or $18 million, depending on who you're sourcing. Still, the fact that its budget started at what is the higher end estimate of the first movie's budget says a lot. And it got a box office gross of $56.3 million, so it still made a profit, but not the monster profit of the first movie. I will not tell you who won it this time, due to the lovingly swerve aspect of it. I will say simply that the Sheik does not win. Sheik, of course, being played by Jamie Farr. So good times, good times. We also have cameo from director Hal Needham and producer Albert Ruddy. And has an even lower rating than its predecessor, gaining 13% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes from only 16 critics. Roger Ebert claiming, after awarding the film a 1/2 star, sheer arrogance made this picture. Gene Siskel was even harsher, awarding it 0 stars, referring to it as worthless and a deceptive film that gives movies a bad name. Siskel himself claiming it is his personal nominee for the worst movie ever made. Still, there would be one more little bit squeezed out of the series. Depending on the country you're in and the distributor, it is known as either Speed Zone, Cannonball Fever, or Cannonball Run 3. Released in 1989, and features only one major star from the first movie returning, and that is Jamie Farr as the Sheik, Falafel. This time, one of the twists is that the original batch of racers are arrested by all of the drivers to prevent the race from happening, and as a result, the sponsors and investors must find replacement drivers within 24 hours. Your cast this time features Melody Anderson, Harvey Atkins, Sherry Belafonte, Peter Boyle, John Candy, Louis Del Grande, Donna Dixon, Jamie Farr, the aforementioned Sheik, Joe Flaherty, Matt Frewer, Brian George, Art Hindle, Mimi Kuzik, Don Lake, Eugene Levy, Carl Lewis, Tim Matheson, Alyssa Milano, an uncredited Richard Petty, cameoing as himself, Brooke Shields, Dick and Tom Smothers, aka the Smothers Brothers, and Michael Spinks, the famous professional boxer. We also have cameos from John Schneider of Dukes of Hazzard fame and Lee Van Cleef in one of his final appearances, famous for working in the spaghetti westerns, especially the Dollars trilogy by Sergio Leone. The movie cost $18 million to film, but only grossed $3 million at the box office, which means it was a bomb. The film is pretty much harshly criticized across the board, being hated by our old buddies Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel, and CinemaScore giving the film an average grade of D+ on an A+ to F scale. Still, for people that do like their car movies, and more importantly, do want to trip out playing, Spot the Famous Actor, 80s edition, it is a film that you can find some of your own joy in. It is easy to see, though, why there was never a Cannonball Race 4, as at this point it was pretty obvious that the idea had run its course, so to speak. I will say this, if you can find the movies as a box set, go ahead and get it. The original Cannonball and Cannonball Run are super solid movies. Cannonball Run 2, again, if you're a fan of the genre, is going to please you. 3, aka Speed Zone, as I said, you can find your own joy in it. The movie, despite what some critics might want to claim, is not as painful to watch as, frankly, some others you could sit through. Pretty much pick any direct-to-home release shark movie made in the last 30 years. There's nothing worse than a bad shark movie. Does this mean that the idea of the Cannonball Run is completely dead? No. There are studios that currently have the rights to the Cannonball Run concept and have tried to come up with a script to reboot and modernize the movie. Will it ever happen? I don't know. The problem with the movies is they were inspired by a real-life race that itself quit being run because of, as we said before, the changing laws and the highway system itself growing and evolving, which means it really was not feasible without getting a lot of, legal loophole permission, which means a lot more setting up and oversight to run it, I mean, most of the people in modern times have recreated the original real-world run, did it during periods where traffic was excessively low. For instance, during the recent COVID lockdowns around the country that meant little to no people were on the road, let alone traveling state to state. I mean, in modern times, there's city cops, state patrols, highway patrols. Not to mention, it's almost unheard of to get a stretch of road in large portions of the original race that would even be empty enough to where you could race it without running the risk of hurting somebody else or yourself. In real life, Brock Yates and his buddies realized after a few years that a race like this couldn't be run forever. And Hollywood realized you can only get so many movies out of this concept for the same reason. How would a modern one even work? Still, that's not for me to decide. That is for Hollywood scriptwriters to decide and try to sell us on. I'm only going to sell you on one simple thing, and that is, in 7 days, get behind the wheel and go on another trip with me as we ramble about something new. I'm going to tie this off with, for one more time repeating it, you can find any of these 4 movies that we've discussed today on your favorite viewing platform. Go ahead and give them a try. You may have to, laugh at the cheesiness of them a little bit, but entertainment is entertainment. And that's what we're all about. Make sure people enjoy what is being made to give them joy. Roulette Productions will be here every Friday. So like, subscribe, click your notification bell, drop a comment, and ultimately, join me on the highway. Because I will always be behind the wheel to take you to another destination that is a video. See you next time.